Welcome to the How to Health podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marvis, and today we have a wonderful couple. So we have Mr. Brian Hart and Jane Esselstyn, who've been married for 20 years and have 3 plant-based children. And thank you so much for joining our podcast today. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, I am so excited to talk to you, both of you. I mean, we were talking beforehand, and there's so much good information, and I can't wait to get started. But can you start first, just kind of tell us a little bit about you? I mean, obviously we understand that Esselstyn name, but I want to know more about Jane Esselstyn and Brian Hart, and tell me what you guys do and how you became involved in this, and who would like to go first?
Go ahead, Jane.
I got involved with the whole plant-based stuff because I kind of grew up in it. When I was a teenager, my parents started going plant-based, or when my dad did, and then my mom got on board, and then I just was starting my freshman year of college. So anyway, came home for the summers and we were eating plant-based, and here we go. And it just all made sense. And so I've been around this for 50, so it's 35 years or something.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, I compare it sometimes to a religion, because you sort of, once you get it and believe in it, it's so hard to have anybody change your mindset about what this is. And it feels so right and head to toe in every cell. And, basically, like, my family, we're all the same size and sort of in the same shape, if you will, of when we all started eating this way as teenagers. So it's great to feel unburdened by your body, or fear of being on medication or disabled by something. And my parents are great examples of it. Brian and I always are talking about how Ann Nessie are my parents, Dr. Esselstyn and Ann Esselstyn, are just superheroes for us in being able to live lives that are active and medication free and keep you involved with your, like, we've got 3 teenagers, and my parents drive carpool, no problem. My mom actually covered proms, 2 proms. We were out of town speaking in Wyoming and Tennessee, and they had 2 different proms this weekend. So my mom's like, I got it. I got the dress, got the shoes. Oh, I should get home at 2, but I watched, TV with one kid till 2 a.m. just to stay awake. And anyway, they're just so active, alert, awake, present, clear-eyed, clear-minded, and stepping high. I'm getting carried away there. But my point is, I've been involved with them since I was a teen myself, and it's been one of the greatest gifts they've given to all of us.
And you got your RN.
And I got, sorry, I'm getting carried away. I'm a nurse, and I do research with the Cleveland Clinic, and I've written a number of cookbooks. The preventable cookbook with my mom, which was a blast. Someone said, "Oh, look, the Esselstyn twins have written a book."
You guys have such the same smile. That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, wow.
Twins, I was not quite, I was in the 40s and she was 80. I mean, my gosh, anyway. And here, this book just came out, The 7-Day Rescue, and I did the recipe section. Here's the most important page. There you go. Yeah. Recipes.
I love it.
And I did all the recipes in Plant Strong. And Rip and I actually have a book coming out in January, or maybe it's December. We're trying to figure out if we can get it around Christmas time or not, or the winter holidays. And it's going to be called The Engine 2 Cookbook, and it is awesome. It is awesome.
Cool. I can't wait. Now, you were teenage, so you had 3 brothers, right?
I have 3 brothers, correct.
And then you met Brian when? Or how'd you guys meet?
Brian and I met working for Outward Bound, which is, I don't know if you know what Outward Bound is.
Yes.
Like backpacking in the woods with groups of people, anywhere from kids who are yay outdoors to kids who are adjudicated, to adults who are looking for a life change or whatever. So we met with 15-year-olds in the woods.
That was our first date.
Oh.
Yeah. So
in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get into that story here in a second. Tell me about Brian.
We met working at Outward Bound, and I think one of the reasons that we hit it off right away is we were both plant-based. Like, I was a vegetarian at that time, not a vegan, or no dairy, because vegan's a dangerous word to use. It assumes a lot of things. But so that's how we met. And so I've been plant-based for since I was 22. I went plant-based, or I should say vegetarian, because I was running marathons at the time and I was just trying to be healthier. And I was coming out of like a college diet of just garbage, and I felt like I wanted to be a little healthier, and it stuck for me. But so we worked at Outward Bound, and then I got into education, classroom education, and I taught in Vermont, and then we moved to Cleveland once we had our first child. And then I got my master's degree, got into administration. I was a middle school principal, believe it or not, for a little while, for 5 years, and that was okay. I learned a lot, but it wasn't any fun. So
He's a recovering administrator.
I'm a recovering administrator. And so I started doing some consulting work in education, and now I'm back to working at a school because consulting was no fun either.
But because he had that free time, we call it radical sabbatical, when he got to do consulting with all sorts of things. That's when we created some of the events we were talking about earlier that we offer. If you want.
Wow. Yes, we definitely want to segue into that. So wait, you have 3 kids now. How old are your kids now?
15, 17, 18.
Okay. Wow, they're tight like mine.
Years.
Oh, I understand. We had diapers for 7 years.
Oh, you 7 years.
They were 4, 2, and newborn. And I started medical school. They were 5, 3, and 10 months. So I understand. So anyway, tell me about these awesome events. So you guys, you're amazing. I mean, I just listened to that. I was like, oh, I want to go. So tell me about it.
I every March, and this coming up here, March 10th of 2018, I host a conference called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease for Women, and it's sort of a unwieldy title, I know, but it has to do with.
I'm going to tuck the tag in.
I threw on your shirt. I have my running clothes on.
What is it with you Esselstyns? And there's always some surprise. I'm sorry. So tell me about your March.
Every March I have this event, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease for Women, because there's so many women are the caregivers and caretakers of the world, basically. I mean, they do so much with the care and the hands-on and the prep and the shopping and everything with food. And they're the ones who, when people are sick, they're the ones who come and help. And being around all this plant-based amazing movement and lectures and workshops and conferences and immersions and things, I got sort of frustrated when I would be invited to do a cooking demo. You know, like here I am with all these men, oftentimes just white men, lecturing and they'd have a break, and here'd be a woman on stage, like Jane and her mom or something. And I was doing research and, been teaching forever. I also teach sex ed when I'm not doing other things, which
I love that. I've taught sex ed. It's so much fun. Oh my gosh.
I love it. So I'm used to teaching and talking, and I was just kind of frustrated with sort of this. I mean, I love all the people I'm hearing talk, but there's so much more that could go on, and other faces and voices that could be heard. And anyway, so kind of with Brian's curricular help and design, the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease for Women conference came to be, and it was such a fun, successful thing. Like our goodie bag is a grocery bag, literally filled with groceries. You can go home and make a recipe that we did that day from that bag.
Oh, I love it.
Hand holding from the start.
Well, it begs a really important question, I think, which is that, diet and nutrition changes are so much more than information. And I think that's what a lot of people, if being healthy was about information, then we'd all be the healthiest people on earth, right? Because you just get the information and make the change. But of course, that's not what it is. There's so much in the way or challenging us to, when we try to make dietary, nutritional, lifestyle changes. Right. And I think what Jane is trying to get at from this kind of women's approach, and men are welcome, of course, at the conference, but the idea again is that
it is like 20%
it's
men.
not just about luck. It's not just about a lecture by a doctor. It's about so many other things. It's about community. It's about people getting together and talking and sharing strategies and being able to learn some of the techniques, but also feel supported in their community. I mean, a lot of times people come to our events and they're like, oh yeah, I've been to 5 of these, but I come because I just need to be around people that are like me, so I don't feel like I'm losing my mind. So that's part of it.
We've reduced it to like food and community are what keep people coming back, or keep people doing this. Like they find the food keeps them going and they're feeling great, or they have this great community they're a part of, and that makes them feel great. It's probably what those blue zones are made up anyway. Like the community and the food keeps the blue zones living till they're 100 and whatever. Yeah. So we're off the rails here. Your question was about events we're doing or something?
Yeah, no. So we start talking about yours, but I love that that's the why. So that's the why. That's
always the question we ask in our marriage and everything. Why?
Yeah, I love Simon Sinek's book. Why? Know your why. I mean, that's exactly why. And exactly why. But I think there's that's a missing piece too with physicians and education when we reach out to patients to improve the lifestyle. Like we're just, go lose weight and cut calories, right? But that's all we know. That's all we know. We never learn how to engage a patient, understanding the emotional, the community part. And physicians are very, at least when I trained, maybe more so now, it's more of a team effort, but it's like you're the authority, you do what I say, this is how it is. And, we're kind of quiet little creatures, take care of our patients. And, we don't take those leadership community opportunities that we have. And so I constantly call physicians, take the leadership opportunities you have and lead your community to a healthier place. I mean,
and of course, the structure that medicine has become is really does not lend itself to the idea of doing what Dr. Esselstyn really has prided himself on since he started his research over 30 years ago, which is spending 2 hours with a patient. I mean, that's what he says. If I can't, he took a pay cut and took a day off a week so he could do his research, and it involved sitting with patients for 2 hours at a time. And what doctor does that these days?
5 hours sometimes. I always rib him that he's using the nursing model of education and
absolutely,
and time and hands-on and hours spent sitting with somebody, which is so much more than nursing model.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, during my education, when I was, an intern just out of medical school and I did my ICU rotation, those nurses saved my butt. You're like, Dr. Marbus, would you like to do this? Patients go, yeah, that sounds good. You're like, you're so freaky. I was like, wait a minute. I'm not the doctor in the room, am I? So, nurses were my friends. So I would go to them and ask them about, inpatients, like, what is this patient saying? What is the family saying? Because they're with them and taking care of them.
They're the workhorses, and everybody in a hospital knows that.
But of course, the system, my point is that the system is, our sister-in-law is a OBGYN, and she's plant-based, married to Jane's brother. And she complains all the time about how frustrating it is, because she has these people come in, she'll have a patient, an overweight woman in her 20s who wants to get pregnant, and all the complications of obesity and how that affects pregnancy and preeclampsia and all these things. And she's got 15 minutes to talk to this woman about her life choices as she's about to embark on one of the most, the richest yet and important and potentially dangerous things she's ever done in her life, health-wise, in terms of getting pregnant. And, she's given 15 minutes to try to do that. And it's so challenging.
And to not have a nurse who can work with her with these patients, you can imagine that whole setup.
Yeah. I mean and now with epigenetics and stuff, you're the health destiny of that child and even their future children, especially if you have a female child. I mean, those eggs are formed when she's carrying her baby. I mean, so there's generational issues at risk. Right. So, wow, that's absolutely true. I mean, as a family doc, as I was seeing patients, it was on a productivity model. You have your base. And so I understand that 15-minute time slot. So you have to figure out how to do that. And that's really what I want to do, is help physicians figure out how to do it in this model, and then maybe be able to evolve out of it when they can. But many of them are stuck in that pattern. There's a lot of physician burnout, physician suicide is high. It's devastating. And
drug addiction. I was just reading an article about opioid addiction amongst doctors and lawyers, actually, high stress jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand it. I've seen it touch lives. So, but you're exactly right. I think it's so important. And then you're helping those patients. Maybe that's what we need, is a community of people can help that doctor. The doctor's like, this is where you need to go see Jane. And then, but this is what I want you to do, but she's going to teach you how to do it. And so that's absolutely.
I think in essence, education is the answer, but it's got to be collaborative education, in my opinion. It can't be just go hear a lecture, read a book. It's got to be people together. In the same way that as education, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I apologize. I love it.
I love it.
But you know, the movement now in education, which is my background, is towards online, right? Online learning. And the problem, and I always tell people, oh, I'm a relational educator. And whether I was like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, I actually believe in the power of sitting next to somebody and working on a paper together, or discussing literature, or all these things, because there's a magic and there's a strength to that you can't get online, that people try to replicate. And I think that's the challenge that we face in the plant-based world, is that there's so much information out there, and there's so many online conferences and podcasts, which are amazing, but I still believe in the power of being in the same room.
Absolutely, because you're exactly right. So if I meet someone online, because I do a lot of stuff online, they're like, well, where can I find someone where I live?
Right.
And, you know, and creating those resources. So hopefully as this movement grows and we bring in more health coaches and, you know, share this information, we'll be able to do that. But I want to be able to connect those people, because we are a bit of a disconnected movement too. We have multiple silos, and I'm like, trying to touch all of them. And it's like, okay, guys, this is all the info stuff we have. So,
it's fun whenever we get together. Like we have an event that's called Wrapping Your Head, Heart, and Hands Around Plant-Based Eating. It's just one day. Again, everything I do is one day, because people are busy. I don't like having like a weekend or a week. But everything that we do is one day long. And this Wrapping Your Head, Heart, and Hands, it's like going to camp. I mean, yes, some people find video games fun or whatever. I don't play video games, but video games fun. But coming for one day, it's so fun, and you meet everybody, and there's just like 20 plus people, and it's like going to camp for the day, and it's just a blast. And you want that. It's almost like a high that you want to have. You're empowered. You've made friends. It feels good.
Plus, we have people make food together, which I think, you know, breaks down those barriers. They're not just sitting in a classroom listening. Like, they actually have to put on plastic gloves and like massage kale together.
I don't like the gloves. I want the microbiome.
And so that again is a chance for people to get their hands dirty, literally and figuratively, and to have an experience, you know, to essentially do what we know they'll remember, which is create a little bit of social anxiety, right? There are people they don't really know. They're meeting people for the first time. Gives them a little bit of a hit of like, oh, I better, you know, behave myself and chit chat and do all that great stuff that'll happen when you put people in the same room.
We make like 22 recipes that day. We do a ton of food, and it's
wow.
They see it, they make it, they taste it. In their goodie bag they have Tupperware, and they put extras in their Tupperware, and they take it home on the plane or driving, and it's great. And so much of it is because of using education around this information so that it sticks.
Right. I mean, you're integrating the doing with the education. It's fun. You're building memories, and your brain starts focusing on that. I mean, if you look at everywhere in your house, most people congregate. It's in the kitchen. I mean, you remember meals. It's what we were eating, when we were eating, sharing. I mean, that's
the most important room in the house.
Absolutely. And I think that's amazing. I am so excited about that. So that's in September. Oh, this is great.
No, that's actually November 4th.
Oh, that's November 4th. Okay, okay, so November 4th.
We just ran at one of those events July 15th, and it was a ton of fun.
Oh, okay.
And another one. The reason we have it November 4th is it's our holiday edition, because we're entering into a big, you know, Thanksgiving, Canadian or American. We have lots of Canadians who come from like the Toronto area down to Cleveland for this event.
Nice.
Awesome. So we can't say standard American diet. We have to say SCAD, which is the standard Canadian American diet.
And Canadians, especially with the poutine stuff, is really
and their Canadian bacon and
you know what poutine is?
No.
Okay, do you ready? Do you want to hear it?
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's gravy and drippings with
cheese curds,
like balls of cheese curds. And so when you eat it, it squeaks.
So the Canadians always have to explain to it what it is. Poutine.
My dog, we take her to camp up in Canada, and we were looking at this like this bunch of restaurants in the food court area. She's like, "Look, you can get s'mores on your fries." And I'm like, "That's so weird," because we thought it was like chocolate and marshmallows. It was gravy and cheese curds. It looks like a soup of s'more. Anyway.
And we were just in Ireland. They're pretty good. Ireland's pretty good too about making some pretty scary things, but we won't talk about that. We were just there.
But I was speaking with the happy pair, these great twins who are making a big difference in Ireland. They're awesome.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've been on their website. I subscribe to their email list. They're great.
Lovely. They're so
they're
great. We love them.
It's way too much energy.
Yeah.
They're addicted. Like we were doing handstands and diving in the sea ourselves.
We went swimming. Yeah, they're like, you got to get up at 5 a.m. and go swimming in the Irish.
No, 3:30.
Oh, 4:30.
Like 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, anyway, I just spoke with them in Ireland exactly a month ago, almost. Yeah.
Cool.
And
wow.
It was a blast. We all hiked through Ireland with our kids.
Wow.
Anyway, we better let you ask a question because
Yeah,
No, I love it. No, that's what the people really enjoy is when they listen to the podcast. So like, it's just like a conversation. Like you've known them forever. It's like, absolutely. Cause that's a conversation I would want to hear and listen to because that's really you and your authentic self. And I mean, that's amazing. I love this. So November 4th, and that'll be in Cleveland. Where in Cleveland? At the Cleveland Clinic? At the Cleveland.
Concord Township, which is this place, it's a place called The Knob, and it's our private residence.
Where your mom grew up.
It's rough, kind of. I mean,
in that area.
And it's like in the woods. It's kind of like a cabin, but has the feel of being,
it's a beautiful spot.
Beautiful
it's
spot
a really
in the woods.
gorgeous spot in the woods, and so it's more like a retreat. It feels that way.
That's a better word.
Cool. Wow.
And so we have 25 people can fit, and we just tuck in there for the day, and then we tuck into a bunch of food. And
one of the whole points of the day is to make sure people realize that you can eat plant-based and be really full. Like we almost
really full.
We almost like make it ridiculous. Like we have so much food, and so anybody who says like, "Oh, I don't feel satisfied," or I'm not feeling full, like that just doesn't happen at that event.
And that's what I would encourage patients is like, you need to eat till you're full. I mean, and don't worry about the calories because there's gonna be less calories. And right. I never had that complaint as long as they were eating a full spectrum, your grains, your beans, your fruits and vegetables, as long as they didn't just focus on fruits and vegetables alone, but added those other elements. I mean, they never had that complaint.
Right. You want people to feel like, no more food,
Right, exactly.
So right, we start making dinner at like 4:30. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then by like 5:15, when they're making their appetizer, and then they're going up to this bar of all this 12 different recipes they've made at dinner, it's all gone. They eat it all.
And then Dr. Esselstyn comes for dinner, so it's nice. He moves around to different tables and asks questions, and people get to ask questions, and he answers them. And it's almost like you get a little bit of like a mini appointment with Dr. Esselstyn too. So it's a great day.
That is fantastic. So now, Brian, you also wrote an article recently, and calling all rebels. Tell me about it because I'm so excited to go get it. There it is, a naked food.
Well, so now you're gonna the whole plant-based thing. I mean, Jane's family has come from a
calling all rebels. Sorry,
I love it.
Jane's family came into the whole plant-based thing from a research and health side, and I think I came into a kind of the plant-based thing early on as I read a book called Diet for a New America by John Robbins, and I kind of came at it from an environmental and it was also health related, but I was in my 20s when I first kind of got into it and started learning about it. But I also was looking at sort of factory farming and a lot more of like the social, political, cultural issues around, the consumption of meat and environmental impact as an outdoor educator. And so fast forward, I think over time, I kind of I've ebbed and flowed in terms of how strict I've been with my diet. Like Jane and I, when we first met, we're really into like, we were no oil, no cheese, no meat. But then there have been times where I've kind of let dairy back into my life, and then I've gotten rid of it. I think when you're a parent, you're sort of a little more of an opportunivore. Not that I was eating meat, but I was, I'd put a little cream in my coffee. But anyway, so then moving forward, what?
I just made
I know. But then I think
20 years.
But then I think
he's a clean guy now.
In the last 10 years, I've gotten much more clean about it and back kind of, but rediscovering in many ways the whole kind of ecological piece. And I'm sure you've seen the documentary Cowspiracy. And, we know those guys.
And what the hell?
Kip and Keegan are great guys. They've interviewed Dr. Esselstyn a few times, and sort of, I guess what I'm finding in the last decade, I guess, is I've kind of reconnected with this notion of plant-based eating as an act of rebellion. And what I mean by that is that in this world where, especially with the current presidency, you can't blame Trump for everything, but certainly Trump is a sign of the times. And I don't think the Democratic Party has done a lot of great favors for the regular working class person either. But I think we have to really look at our lifestyle and our choices is to claim that we stand for all these things and yet make these choices in our everyday life. And so what this article really is about in a nutshell is that every day, if you can wake up every day and eat a healthy meal and set an example for your family, and essentially by example alone tell the world that you're making a choice that's better for the planet, that's better for you, it's better for your family, and in the end might help us perhaps curb some of our huge appetites, both literal and figurative appetites around our consumption practices. In a way, I think that's what's going to change the world. That's our hope at this point. Now, with global warming and everything else, I just am so concerned. We're good friends with Richard Oppenlander. Has he ever been on the podcast?
No, but I know of him, yes.
So Dr. Oppenlander is a guy that we connected with about a year ago, and he's amazing. So he's written Food Choices and Sustainability. And he really feels, and I agree with him, is that plant-based eating actually may be our only chance. Because if we want to try to phase out and move to electric cars and all these things to try to essentially save the planet, that's going to take years and years. But every one of us tomorrow could go plant-based, and that would have a significant effect on all these problems that we worry about but aren't really willing to deal with. So there's my little soapbox speech on
can I read
acts of rebellion. And
I read a sentence from his article?
Please.
It's kind of at the end. It's sort of just to make you want to read the whole article. It says, so become a whole food plant-based rebel. Each meal is an act of defiance. Each forkful should be seen as a fist in the air against all that you stand against and in support of all that you believe to be true. You need not take up arms or lob rocks to do this. You only need to fill your pantries with life-affirming food and share it and your convictions with all those around you. If someone asks you if you've become politically active in response to recent national challenges, you can respond, yes, I'm so glad you asked. I'm a proud plant-based freedom fighter, a member of the Rebel Alliance of Whole Food Plant-Based Eaters. I love that.
That is, I think it's beautiful because I think it depends on, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum of conservatism, libertarianism, whatever, we can all agree that we need to eat healthier. We need to be focused on our future for our children's future, our grandchildren's future. And it's concerning that so many people disengage. They act the victim, but this actually gives you what you have control of is what you put in your mouth every day. And I think it's empowering. That's great.
It is. And it's a good friend of ours, Adam Sudd, who
Adam's, I've been interviewed him.
Yeah, so Adam is a great friend of ours, and he has this great, when he tells his story of addiction recovery, for those of you who don't know Adam, he is a recovering drug addict and found plant-based eating as his road to recovery. He used it. And what he says is that if every day when he was in rehab, if he could wake up and have a bowl of oatmeal and say to himself, I'm going to make this as healthy a day as I can, that for him, every meal became this stepping stone. Like if I could just make it to lunch, and then at lunch I'm going to do this, and then at dinner I'm going to do this, keep it very simple, and he was going to be able to essentially change himself. And now he's doing incredible work all over the country, and he's really turned his life into a shining example of what you can do if you just take it one meal at a time. So it's pretty magical.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in addiction, that's really the important thing, is that it doesn't have to worry about tomorrow. Just worry about the next 60 seconds, the next hour, the next meal. You're exactly right. And there's a lot of cross addiction. You have alcoholics and it's been really interesting. The work that I've done the last year I've really gotten involved with a lot of the mental health professionals, and how I didn't understand as a primary care physician the depth of hurt and why people develop these eating habits. And now we have this the society of this processed food that's highly addictive, and it's like the next crack. I mean, but it's acceptable for us to eat this way, and it's just so frustrating. I didn't understand what I was facing as a doctor saying lose weight the traditional way. I didn't get it. And I don't think a lot of doctors do. And I think that needs to be part of the message is this is more than just changing to a plant-based diet. We need to change our food environment everywhere. And doctors need to be the first people to stand up and do it and stop sitting in your rooms with your door shut. It's like, speak it up. So, wow, that's really, I love that art. I can't wait to go. Actually, I'm thinking to publish this earlier so everyone will get this article sooner. I think that's fabulous.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I will publish it today. I think this is great. I mean, sometimes there's a few times I'll do the podcast like, nope, we're going to publish that today. We're not going to wait. So that is so important. And I can't imagine.
Well, I mean, so Jane's tends to be the light in our marriage, and I tend to be the dark. So we have to kind of counteract each other.
Yin yang.
The yin and the yang, as they say.
But my cup is half full and a little bubbly, and his is always like.
But I really, I mean, I'm just sort of overwhelmed all the time at the state that we're in. And part of the presentations that I do on our days of working together is Jane and her dad do a lot of the science and the research, and then I do the psychology and the sociology part of it. So I take a lot of the Doug Lisle stuff. I'm sure. Have you ever interviewed Doug Lisle?
I interviewed Doug Lisle last week. It was an hour and 20 minutes, and we didn't even realize it had been an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, hold up, we're going to have to stop this and do this another one. He's so brilliant. I mean, just a tenth of, not even a tenth, like amazing. A tenth of a percent of what he talks about, the evolutionary psychology and wow.
So I do that part. I do the kind of how did we get here? What are we challenged by? Looking at calorie density, looking at the psychology and the evolutionary psychology. And then this other guy, Mark Cohen, Dr. Mark Cohen's written a book called Your Survival Instincts Are Killing You, which is another great book that I reference. And that to me is the part that I really fascinated by. Like the science I get, and it makes more sense to me every time I hear Dr. Greger or Dr. Esselstyn or any of these other amazing docs talk. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Like, that's perfect. But the part that fascinates me is kind of the sociocultural, psychological side.
Yeah. I mean, because the work that I was doing here in Florida was like, we would put people in a place where we fed them. I was like, the food will take care of all the chronic diseases and stuff, but I got to make sure that when you leave here, you don't go back to your old ways. It's those habits. Like I'm so infatuated with Charles Duhigg.
Who's that?
He wrote The Habit Loop. Have you read that?
Yeah, okay.
Oh my gosh. So I've emailed him. I'm like, he's got this crazy doctor keeps emailing me. I was like, I've taught this to my patients. This is what we've done. I just want to let you know. And he's like, oh God, get away from me. But that's fantastic.
So the book that I've been loving in recent years is Mark Sunstein, who did it's
which one's that?
It's the book called Nudge.
Oh, Nudge. I've read Nudge. That's
yeah.
That's a deep book. I read that as part of a course. Wow.
So libertarian paternalism is the fancy term for what we're trying to do. And really what it is if you're a parent, you understand it, because that's exactly what you do as a parent, which is you make sure that people feel like they have choices, but you want to make sure that all the choices are healthy. It really looks at
it's a benign dictatorship.
Yeah, trying to get people to make healthy choices and defaulting to the better option versus defaulting to the worse option. Anyway, an interesting study.
I love it. No, I've always told my kids too. I was like, listen, this is not a democracy. Your dad and I are the dictators, and that's just the way it is. You'll be fine. And they're turned out to be amazing kids. I mean, they got some great kids. So I love this. Oh my gosh, we could talk for hours. So as far as I know, you guys do a lot of work also with children, and you've done, you just said your mom is your twin, and I just like had this vision of your mom.
Jane is such similar old school names. So.
But you did some research with your pediatrician, right? Your previous pediatrician, and which
our kids would go to see a pediatrician. He's wonderful. He was 6'6", or he is 6'6", and he was just this great big guy. And every time they asked, certain questions about car seats and
smoke
alarms and drinking glasses of milk, and I would say yes, no, we're not going to drink milk. And he eventually went to see my dad at the Cleveland Clinic where he worked, do his grand rounds, and he sort of got convinced and went through his own pathology situation. and reversed himself. And he's like, all right, Jane, let's do some research. What should we do? Here we go. And so it was really exciting, sort of creating this study, and it was comparing obese kids with high cholesterol.
We make a lot of them in Ohio.
Cleveland especially. Obese kids.
It's your specialty.
Yeah, opioids and fat kids.
Oh, you haven't been to Colorado. Let me tell you about drugs. Anyway, sorry. I digress.
So we had a population of these kids with a compliant parent who would be supportive, with food and cooking and attitude-wise. So we actually had a couple sets of data. But the kids, we compared a plant-based diet to the American Heart Association diet. And I was the nurse who taught, you can imagine which one. Oh, the plant-based diet.
Oh, was it the paleo, huh?
So we met once a week for a month, and we had biometrics before and after. I mean, not just biometrics, but we did bowels, blood, biometrics, breath even. The Cleveland Clinic had all this stuff that they want to look at and research. And Hazen had just come out with the whole TMAO, carnitine connection then. So we kind of had access to those labs. Anyway, great study. And by the end of the month, we knew that anybody who's, as you know, anybody who's compliant on any diet will have a change if they're just compliant. So we knew that the AHA diet would have some success, and they did. They had smaller arm circumference, waist circumference, and I think like their MPO marker with their inflammation went down. But with our plant-based diet, we had a decrease in CRP, MPO, blood pressure, LDL, total cholesterol, blood sugar, 9 arm circumference, body weight, BMI, everything in a month. And for these kids, a month is like a 0.5% of their life. It's kind of a lot of their life. And they just made a big change in a little time. So our feedback was, after this got published in February 2015 in Journal of Pediatrics, I'm on page 5 in italics in the corner, as every RN is, but we did another study because the feedback was not long enough. Come on, this isn't, show us more. We are 11/12 through a 1-year-long study at the Cleveland
wow.
comparing 3 different diets. Do you know what they were? Are they what they are?
I'm guessing plant-based, AHA,
and Mediterranean.
Oh.
And we're using the parameters from the Predimed study minus the alcohol, the wine situation with the kids. And a year is about, 10% of a kid's life in some cases. And that's a long time. So as we all know, anybody in research knows that compliance is rough with diet, no matter what they're doing. And we are seeing, I can't say anything about it, but it ends soon, and hopefully it'll be published soon. And it's just so interesting to work with people and food. And some people are like, all right, I'm interested, I'm on board, here we go. We randomized these people into the diets. They knew what they might get. And it was tough to see some kids get randomized into some groups, but I really can't say more. You know how they are about research. You can't say. But
I can't wait to hear. Now this is also, you're going to try and get this published also in the Journal of Pediatrics as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll do that. I mean, that's more of Dr. Mackin, Macknin. He will, I'm not sure where we're going to pitch it all, but we tried another journal. We'll see. Let's hope.
Cool.
Let's hope.
That's amazing. I mean, because that really is where you could influence pediatricians and them bringing this message. I mean, there's just so much.
If any pediatrician is listening, the IRB was passed in 20 minutes for this.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. They know it's going to do no harm.
Yeah.
They're like, be helpful.
Yeah.
It's
except for Mediterranean.
Oh my God.
Because
we can't talk about it. We can't talk about the premise of the study.
With the oils and everything. Yeah.
I mean, I see these.
It's tough to see an obese 12-year-old walking away with a gallon thing of olive oil.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's okay.
My brother Rip is calling.
Oh.
Sometimes his butt calls me though, because I'm like on his whatever frequently called.
Yeah, the I love this so much. Oh my gosh. So now that is impressive. I can't wait because I'd heard your previous podcasts. I'd listened to a few other ones that you've done with others, and I knew you were going to do that year-long study, but I didn't realize you were already almost a year into it. That's amazing. I can't wait to read that. With that, yeah. Well, you'll have to let me know, or at least send me an ad, because some of us don't always have access to those journals because you have to paid access. They're not free. So I would love to be able to get hold of that and share that with the folks that I know. Now, you also do, we just got to touch a little bit on this, sex ed with kids. I love that so much because the conversations I've had with my children, they're like, no other parent talks to their kids like this. I'm like, I know, but you need to know the facts. And so, yeah, I've taught middle school kids. I don't know. They're just a blast.
Middle school is my gig. That's
oh my God. They ask the most funny questions, but tell me.
So fun. That's
tell me what your experience is and why you do that.
Sorry, as soon as you asked the question, we had a thing today.
Yeah, that's what mine did too. So tell me about how you got interested in sex ed and what your thoughts and feelings are and why.
Information is power. It saves us. Information is what we need. Information is not permission. I don't care what your values are or where you come from. Just making these, like people were saying, an informed decision.
We feel like that's been our sort of approach to parenting. Like, have you seen the movie Captain Fantastic?
No. Is it on Netflix?
We loved it. We were like, ooh, that's
anyway. That guy's an extreme version, but like you tell the truth. We've always approached our kids with, if they have a question, we're going to answer it, and we're not gonna candy coat it. We're not gonna avoid topics. If it comes up, it comes up, and we felt that way in everything. And so
people always ask, like, when did you start talking about sex ed? I'm like, in utero. Like, they were hearing it all.
I gotta tell you this story. When my daughter was 2, I gave birth to my son, my second child, when he was a baby, and she would see me change diapers, and she's like, what is it? That's a penis. She goes, peanuts? She kept calling me. So yeah, but it starts then, right? So you're absolutely right. It's not foreign and scary.
So the approach is informed decision making. We want you to have all the information you need to make a decision in your life. And that may mean in 20 years, but that may mean now. And so
this is a whole other podcast.
Yeah, this is a whole other podcast.
All right, so we've got 4 podcasts lined up in the future now, guys.
But I got involved with this when I was just starting to teach when I was 24, 25. And like a neighbor of mine actually taught health at the school, and she was going to be out of town for a week for like a wedding or a funeral. It was like she had to go out to the Caribbean. She had to leave the country. She's like, could you take it for a week? And I was like, sure. And at the time I was applying to medical school. So I'm like, sure, I'm just working on my essays and stuff. And she's like, actually, could you take that class all year? And I was like, okay, I guess so. So I taught sex ed, and then it ended up being, just more teaching and on and on and on. So I've never stopped since then. So not many of us would seek that, as you know, but there's a few of us like you and me, we're sort of.
I did it. Yeah, I did it a few times in Colorado, and it was so much fun because kids are just they're not used to adults saying, yeah, let's talk. Let's talk about everything you're scared to ask your folks. And so
our son just walked in. He just got back from swim practice, and he's like, what's going on? There he is.
Oh, hi.
We're regular sized people. I mean, I'm 5'10", he's 6'2". This guy's 6'6.5". Poor vegetarian or poor vegan plant-based kiddo.
He's really short on protein.
Yeah, didn't have a lot of milk, no milk.
Wow. No, you're both I'm only 5'7". My husband's Filipino, so he's 5'6", but all 3 of my kids swim competitively as well for years. So that is 6 foot. That's a lot of food. And a swimmer too. They eat so much food.
So look, if you walk by, you'd think it was a twig in the wind.
Yep, I understand. Yeah, my boys are into getting swole. Mom, we need muscles. Yeah, so they eat a lot of food. They eat a lot of food. Oh gosh, but so that's fabulous. So now, do you ever bring you talk to women and you're hoping these things. Do you bring in that component? I mean, that intimate part of their lives, because that's really important.
No, because the name of my talk that I give at my conference, at our things, is the benefits of plant-based eating above and below the belt. I'm all about below the belt. All about the belt. Talk about, like, I mean, in middle school, all the kids in my class have been watching football games, and Viagra and Cialis are just, talked about. So I talked about it with middle school kids. I'm going to talk about it at my conference because my dad's talking about dilation of arteries, and it's all tied together down there with the dilation of the penile artery and how it works with. So yes, I talk about.
We always tell Essie
women's sexual pleasure.
If Essie repackaged his message into erectile dysfunction, he'd make $1 million, $1 zillion, right?
And that's, well, he would get much more attention, which I think he wants attention on the message. He's not looking for
he's not looking for money. I'm
yeah.
Right. But I get it. Well, that's what's important.
And then I would never, ever talk about males and not talk about females. I'm the only sister. I've got 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. So everything was talked about with boys, we talk about it with girls. So we talk about female anatomy and female sexual health and pleasure down there as well.
Right.
If we can talk about the stuff with men.
Right.
So yeah, half my talk is below the belt, where I'm much more comfortable.
I love this so much. I have to go to your events. I just got to see this. This is fabulous. Oh my gosh. Well, there was a book just written by Dr. Joel Kahn and Ellen Jeff Jones, The Vegan Sex. So I've interviewed both of them, and I was laughing so hard I almost fell over. I mean, it was they talk about some good stuff.
To be really honest, the ED piece is a really interesting one. I mean, as Jane said, these middle schoolers come into health class and they're like, what's Vialis? What are all these ads with people in bathtubs riding bicycles? Like, what's going on? These kids have no idea what they're about, and so Jane's got to explain it. And really, it's a crisis amongst a lot of men in their 50s and 60s. And
well, why is that going to happen to me? Is that the woman's fault? I mean, they get all kind. They don't know what's going on. They don't get, like, why is this a problem?
Right. And you tell them it's early death. I mean, it's a sign of early death.
They think it's something that happens when you paint a room together, because you know how all the ads.
Those are oh Lord. You gotta love it. Oh, there he is. Oh my goodness. Hi. The total swimmer's body right there. Long and good. That's amazing. So I think, it's funny that you speak about the anatomical, physiological side of it, but they also, like, I've had patients as young in their 40s and 30s with it, but there's a psychological side of it too.
Well, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but you know what it is? If it's been ruled out that it's not psychological for like, I'm unemployed, or I have anxiety or whatever, or, neurological, a pudendal nerve deadened or something. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is induced, and I can't believe I'm talking about this with you.
I can't believe you are either.
But because of the internet and the omnipresence of online porn, it causes pornography has a huge link to young, healthy males having erectile dysfunction, because what gets them over the hedge is not always what this beautiful live person can do for them when they're so virtual thing. That's a whole of itself.
That's a separate part.
And I talk about it in middle school because that's where the porn habit starts.
Absolutely. And I agree 100% because I can talk to you about that. Amen.
My son's laughing. He's like, of course you talk about that. So I talk about it with all my kids.
You should hear these conversations I've had with my kids. Like, you're in a car, we drive long distance. You're like, here it is. We're going to talk about this. They need to understand and relationships and the importance of that. I mean, absolutely. Don't fill your brain with crap. You're going to get crap out. I mean, come on. This is like common sense. But no, you've done your kids. They'll appreciate it later. I'm sure they appreciate it now, but even more so later when they understand, see all the problems that they're.
Starting to get a few fruits have sprouted along the way that we've seen.
Yeah.
Though our youngest daughter is always will say, Mommy, please don't talk about sex ed with my friends in the car. Just stop. Like, don't go there.
And it just
embarrassing me.
It highlights the card. It brings it up. My files are open in my mind, and I'm ready to just spring with a song. It's a wire.
Oh, I've talked to my daughter's boyfriends about it.
Oh, that's one of the first things I talked about with my daughter's boyfriend.
Absolutely. And let me tell you.
All male. I'm like, so what's your sex ed program like? Do you guys talk about the importance of pornography? and trying to live that
Yeah.
stuff and not live it. Just
Absolutely.
Just pray away the urge.
Prayer's a good thing. Prayer's a good thing. Oh my goodness gracious. I think we had agreed to 45 minutes we went over, but I hope you guys don't mind.
No
But
problem.
but wow, this is fabulous. So we have the conferences in November, the one in March, the article, your research is finishing up. You got a lot of exciting stuff. All the books that you've written. I mean, I'm gonna list everything for you. But
and the Engine 2 cookbook coming out in I think
either December or January, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the final is. Beautiful pictures.
Oh,
so yummy.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I'm getting hungry just now thinking about this. So, so, but I like to end the podcast. I think we need to have a second one for sure, if that's okay with you at some point in the future when you're ready.
And maybe, and so we don't drive you crazy, maybe you can send us like, here's what I want you to cover, because we'll cover like 25 different topics.
Yeah. I know. I kind of like it's kind of fun to see where it grows. Yeah. So, but that first conversation is always fun because there's so much to talk about. And then, but yeah, I could see us traveling down one lane or one rabbit hole for sure. Because now I kind of get a feel for everything. But it's
I think the piece about raising plant-based kids is an interesting one. That a lot of people ask us questions about, and we have some ideas about that might be interesting to talk about. And I'm sure you have as much, if not more, to share about that.
let me tell you, mine were 13, 15, and 18 when I came home one night and said, we're done. And it was good. But I mean, I got a lot of thumbs down as I was learning the cooking and the differences. And my daughter just actually came on board fully in the last 6 months. So I understand that struggle.
But that was the experience I had. My parents started when I was your kid's age. So I understand exactly what your kids are going through. And and all three of my brothers, same way, like all 20 of us in our family, like spouses and children, there's 20 of us and we all are plant-based.
Yeah.
And my dad, of course, doesn't have a cook. So it was my mom and just good food that
convinced him. I mean, absolutely. Because my husband ended up losing 65 pounds. He didn't have health issues, but I'm sure we were heading that direction. We were in our late 40s and we can't afford, well, now we were in our early 40s then.
He must be half his size.
I mean, he was already kind of muscular. So, but he died. When we got married, I was like, you were really thin when we got married. We're like, what happened over all those years? And, I mean, we obviously were very active physically with our kids and we're hiking and running and we do a bunch of stuff. But, I've even done a Tough Mudder with my boys and I'm like, that's what mom should be able to do. I'm like, I don't understand if you can. But yeah, so yeah, absolutely. The context of bringing this into a family that's already got kids at different ages is so important because people are they're afraid to upset their children. And
it does raise some interesting pieces about, I think when your kids are in middle school and early high school, you want them to fit in. And I think being plant-based really creates, if they haven't grown up with it, creates like a whole other reason why people are like, oh, that person's weird or that person doesn't, you know what I mean? Like it's really interesting that way.
How we package it was really interesting how my youngest took it on. So my boys are fully on board. Even now my youngest is almost 19 and then Jonathan's 21. And Gabe relished being different. Like he liked being the vegan because we were in Western Colorado, Rifle, Colorado, and he was the one kid that could play, he's playing varsity baseball, could catch a full game starting and then go pitch and never have any issues with a doubleheader. And the parents are like, why is your kid able to do that? He could run cross country, he could do all these things. And I'm like, well, look at how he eats. So he liked being that kid. And so I think it's how the parents package it to the kids and how they receive it. And that's that relationship too. I mean, you obviously have a really cool relationship with your kids. They're honest and there's communication. And it's just, I've taught people even how to do like timeout when they were little kids in my office. In my MA would be my medical assistants, like, you've been teaching timeouting because they hear screaming coming out of the exam room. And I'm teaching the mom, it's okay to scream and cry, but you have to be the parent here. They can't tell you to shut up and call you names. I'm like, this is unacceptable. I'm like, so, I mean, I think that's important. We've kind of forgot how to parent.
I think believe me, as a middle school administrator, that's a whole separate series of podcasts.
I mean, it's okay to parent, people. You're the adult here. So yeah, I have love those conversations. So, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, we'll just set up a regular monthly podcast with you guys and just let me know. um, but so I want to say thank you. So when I end the podcast, I'd like to acknowledge those, because you guys, I think being an educator is such a thankless job. I mean, we've known principals and teachers, and they spend so much and they sacrifice so much of their time and their spirit and their souls in teaching these little people. And their parents are angry at them, and they're blame them, and before they look and say, well, what's my responsibility as a parent to make that teacher's job easier to mold my child? And so thank you for that. And then Jane, I think nurses, I told you before, I think are a huge part of my education, and others, and you're just naturally